The key card lay in the storm drain now, swallowed by black water along with the birth certificate and the locket. Leo's bare feet were cold on the tile floor as he watched it all disappear. Behind him, Sarah stood in the doorway of their house, and the sun was finally rising over the lawn where the ambulances had been. But 13 hours earlier, Leo was just a 12-year-old boy with dust on his sweatshirt, crawling through the attic of his family home. The gray fabric of his sleeves was already stained as he moved on his hands and knees across the attic floor. He pushed aside heavy stacks of yellowed National Geographic magazines, their edges curled and brittle. Dust motes hung in the golden light that poured through the circular window, and below him, the creaking floorboards announced every movement. In the distance, a neighbor's lawnmower droned on in the afternoon heat. He had come looking for old toys, a baseball glove, maybe an electric train set. Instead, his fingers caught on something better, a loose floorboard near the chimney. He hooked his fingernails into the gap and pried upward. The wood resisted, groaning against years of settled dust, and then it popped open with a sharp snap that echoed through the empty space. Inside was darkness. He reached in and pulled out a small metal cigar box, black and gold with the Partagas brand stamped on the lid. The soot was thick, years of accumulated grime. He wiped it away with his palm, leaving streaks of gray across the box's surface. The lock was tarnished silver. Leo went to the toolkit in the corner and found a flathead screwdriver. It took 3 tries, the metal bending slightly with each attempt, and then the latch clicked open. He lifted the lid slowly. Inside was a thick stack of Polaroid photographs held by a red rubber band. Beneath them lay a bundle of letters tied with kitchen twine. On top, almost like a key to everything, sat a hotel key card. The Obsidian Palms. The logo was a black palm tree, and the plastic was worn smooth from handling. Leo snapped the rubber band off the photos. His fingers trembled. The first photo showed his father, David, laughing on a beach. His arm was wrapped around a woman Leo had never seen before. She had bright red hair, impossibly red, and a silver piercing through her left eyebrow. She was wearing a green bikini. His father wore blue swim trunks. They both looked happy in a way Leo had never seen either of them be. He flipped to the next photo. Same woman, his father. A restaurant lit by candlelight. The date stamp in the corner was small but readable. October 14th, 2010. He whispered it aloud. My birthday. His 10th birthday. The day he had turned 10, his father had been at this restaurant with this woman, not at home with cake and candles. Leo picked up one of the letters. The stationery was from the Grand Central Hotel, and the handwriting was unmistakably his father's. The thick ink strokes, the recognizable cursive that Leo had seen his whole life on signed permission slips and birthday cards. He read the first line. My darling Elena, leaving the house today was like walking out of a prison. Only you make me feel alive. His grip tightened. The paper crumpled at the edges. He could feel something dark and heavy settling in his chest, a weight that would not lift. That evening, Leo threw a basketball against the asphalt of the local park's court with more force than necessary. The orange sphere thudded hard with each impact, and his breathing came in harsh bursts. His mind was still in the attic, still holding that letter, still seeing his father's face on the beach with a woman who wasn't his mother. Toby appeared, taller and broader in his varsity jacket, moving with the easy confidence of a boy who had never found hidden boxes. He stole the ball, spinning it on his finger, and his smirk was instantly insufferable. What's up with you today, Leo? His voice carried that particular cruelty that playground bullies perfected. You look like your dog died. Or maybe your dad finally left that boring lunch lady you call a mom. The words hit something raw and exposed inside Leo. Before he could think, before he could stop himself, he lunged. His shoulder drove into Toby's chest with the full force of his rage. Both of them crashed to the pavement, and the air exploded from Toby's lungs. Leo pinned him down, sitting on his stomach. He swung a wild right hook that connected with Toby's cheek. Toby's head snapped to the side, and blood began seeping from a split lip, spraying crimson across the court. Toby thrashed beneath him, bringing his knee up into Leo's spine. Leo gasped and rolled off, and then Toby's heavy sneaker came up and kicked him in the ribs. The dull thud of impact drove the air from his body. Leo grabbed Toby's ankle and twisted hard. Toby fell again, and this time Leo crawled over him with his hands around Toby's throat, squeezing. He could feel his own heartbeat in his ears, could feel the animal rage that had been building since the attic. Other boys scrambled, shouting, pulling at Leo's arms. 3 of them finally dragged him back. Leo stood there, breathing in ragged gulps, spitting blood onto the court. And then he saw it. The key card, tumbled from his pocket during the fight, lying on the asphalt in front of him like an accusation. He swiped it up and tucked it into his shoe. Then he ran, ignoring the shouts behind him, his feet pounding on the pavement as the sun turned orange and began to sink toward the horizon. He halted under a street lamp several blocks away, and when he looked at his hands, they were covered in Toby's blood and the dust from the attic. His entire body was shaking. He understood, in that moment, that he could never tell his mother what he had found, that the life he had lived up until the attic was a lie, and that he couldn't unknow it now. He punched the metal pole of the street lamp in frustration. The sound rang out like a bell through the empty street, and the vibration traveled up through his wrist and arm. By 11:30 at night, Leo sat on the 5th step of the staircase, hidden by the mahogany banisters. He peered through the slats into the dimly lit foyer below. The grandfather clock ticked steadily. Moonlight lay in blue bands across the carpet. His father paced the foyer wearing a silk dressing gown, checking his silver Rolex every few seconds. The house was quiet, except for his footsteps. Then 3 heavy thuds sounded at the front door, and David froze. He opened the door. A man stood there in a tailored charcoal suit and a black face mask. The man handed David a thick manila envelope sealed with red wax, and Leo leaned forward, his eyes going wide. The envelope had a name written on it in bold black marker, Elena Valeska, followed by words that made Leo's throat close. Final settlement. David opened the envelope. Even from the stairs, Leo could see the stack of $100 bills inside. At least $10,000. His father's voice came as a whisper. "Is she gone?" The visitor nodded once and turned to leave. David began to turn back toward the foyer, and Leo's elbow knocked against a decorative porcelain vase on a pedestal. It wobbled, but didn't fall. Leo froze, holding his breath, watching his father's silhouette pause. The front door locked with a click. Leo understood then that the affair wasn't just a romance. His father was paying someone to disappear, or worse. He crept back up to his room and sat on his bed, pulling out the cigar box from under the floorboards where he had hidden it. He looked at the woman in the photo again, studying her face as if it held answers. And then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. She was wearing a locket exactly like the one his mother wore. Gold. Heart-shaped. Leo hid the box under his pillow and lay down, staring at the ceiling as his alarm clock blinked 12 a.m. in red light. The numbers seemed to mock him. He closed his eyes, but did not sleep. The next morning was Sunday. Bright sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, and the house was silent except for the sound of coffee being poured. Leo sat at the glass-topped kitchen table, moving soggy Cheerios around in a white bowl with a silver spoon. He took no bites. The spoon clicked against the glass, a rhythmic sound that filled the silence. Sarah stood at the counter, pouring coffee from a glass carafe into 2 mugs. She wore a floral apron and hummed softly, oblivious. The gold heart locket hung from her neck, catching the sunlight. David entered wearing his golfing attire, white polo shirt, khaki pants. He kissed Sarah's cheek and looked perfectly normal, as if the midnight visitor had never happened. His eyes scanned the room quickly, and then he smiled. Sarah turned to him. "Did you sleep well, honey? I thought I heard someone at the door late last night." She brushed a stray hair from his forehead, and David didn't blink. "Just the wind, Sarah. Or maybe the neighbor's cat." His eyes caught Leo's across the table, and his gaze went hard and warning. He pointed at Leo's bowl. "Eat your breakfast, Leo." Leo's hand shook. He dropped the spoon, and as he reached to pick it up, the Obsidian Palms keycard slipped from his pocket along with a crumpled napkin. Both slid across the glass table toward his father. David saw it. His face went from tan to a sickly gray in an instant. He slammed his hand down on the card, covering it before Sarah could see, his knuckles white from the pressure. David stood up abruptly, the chair screeching against the tile. "Leo, my office. Now. Sarah, give us a minute. Boys' grades need a talk." His grip on Leo's bicep was so hard that bruises would bloom there by evening. David threw Leo into a leather armchair and locked the heavy oak office door. The deadbolt clicked with finality. He turned, holding the Obsidian Palms keycard in front of Leo's face, his hands trembling. "Where did you get this? What have you been through in my things?" He shook Leo by the shoulders, his voice guttural and raw. Spit flew across Leo's cheek. Leo's head snapped back with the force of it. Without thinking, moving on pure instinct, Leo headbutted his father. His forehead connected with David's nose, and there was a sickening crunch that echoed through the room. David staggers back, hands over his face, blood leaking between his fingers and dripping onto his white polo shirt. David roared in pain and lunged. He swept a heavy brass lamp off the desk, swinging it at Leo. Leo duckered, and the lamp shattered a row of law books on the shelf, glass raining down onto the Persian rug. Leo scrambled toward the door, but David grabbed the back of his shirt and tore the fabric. He pulled Leo back and slammed him against the desk. Pens and paper flew everywhere, scattering across the mahogany surface. Leo grabbed a heavy silver letter opener from the desk. He didn't stab, but he slashed David's forearm. David yelped and let go. Leo kicked him in the shins and sprinted for the window. Later, Leo sat on a metal bench under a cracked plastic bus shelter, shivering. His torn shirt was pulled closed around him. The rain drummed steadily on the plastic above, and he could see his reflection distorted in the puddles at his feet. He pulled out a second envelope, one he had swiped from David's desk during the struggle. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a copy of his own birth certificate. He looked at the mother's name line. It didn't say Sarah. It said, Elena Valeska. Beneath the birth certificate was a legal document titled Deed of Separation and Silence. It outlined monthly payments to Elena Valeska in exchange for full custody and her disappearance. His father's signature was next to hers. Leo sat in the rain, and the world he had known crumbled into dust. He wasn't the son of the woman who had tucked him in every night since he could remember. He was the result of an affair that David had buried with cash and documents and legal agreements designed to erase his real mother from existence. He looked at the key card again. On the back, written in fading marker, was a room number, 304. He checked the bus schedule. He knew where he had to go. The oil-stained parking lot of the Obsidian Palms was illuminated by a pink neon sign that hummed and flickered in the darkness. It cast a rhythmic glow across Leo's face as he walked toward the motel, past parked cars with cracked windshields and plastic bags hanging from antennas. He found room 304. The door was peeling blue paint, chipped in places to reveal the white primer beneath. His hands trembled as he slid the key card into the lock. The little light turned green. There was an electronic click. The room was empty of people, but it was full of Elena. A red wig sat on a styrofoam head on the dresser. A half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey sat on the laminate table next to a yellowed newspaper. The air smelled like stale cigarettes and vanilla. A dripping faucet sounded from the bathroom. A slow, rhythmic plink, plink, plink. On the nightstand was a photograph. It showed a baby, him, he realized. But someone had scratched out the eyes with a needle, leaving only angry white scratches. The word "sorry" was written across the wallpaper in red lipstick, the letters smeared like blood. The bathroom door swung open. It wasn't Elena. It was the man in the charcoal suit from last night. He was holding a roll of duct tape in one hand and a heavy black stun gun in the other. Blue electricity arced between the probes. Leo dived under the bed. The fixer lunged, and the stun gun hit the metal bed frame. Sparks flew in a cascade of blue and white. Leo kicked out from underneath, connecting with the fixer's shins. The man grunted and stumbled. Leo crawled out and grabbed the whiskey bottle from the table. He smashed it against the edge of the laminate, the glass shattering in his hands. Amber liquid splashed across the floor. He held the jagged neck toward the fixer like a weapon. The fixer laughed, actually laughed, and grabbed a motel chair, using it as a shield. He pushed Leo back into the wall. A framed picture of a cat fell and shattered over Leo's head. Glass pieces rained down, and one cut his scalp. Blood trickled warm down his forehead. Leo felt his way to the nightstand lamp. He ripped it out of the wall, the cord trailing like a tail, and swung it at the fixer's face. The heavy ceramic base connected with the man's jaw. The fixer stumbled backward into the bathroom, momentarily stunned. Leo didn't wait. He grabbed his backpack and leapt through the window. Glass shattered as he rolled onto the asphalt of the parking lot, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. He scrambled to his feet and ran. He stumbled toward the main road, blood mixing with rain on his face. A black SUV was idling at the curb, its headlights bright and blinding. His father sat behind the wheel. The window rolled down. "Get in the car, Leo. You're making this so much harder than it has to be." David's voice was smooth, almost disappointed. He looked like he was about to leave for the office on a normal Tuesday morning, not like a man whose entire empire had just collapsed. Leo backed away. "Where is she? Where is Elena?" David sighed and turned a tablet screen toward him. It showed a live video feed. Sarah was tied to a chair in their basement, her eyes wide and terrified above the duct tape covering her mouth. She was alive. Elena was standing behind her, with her hand on the back of the chair. David's voice came again, calm and certain. "Elena didn't want money, Leo. She wanted her life back. She's the one holding the camera. If you don't get in, she kills the only mother you've ever known." Thunder cracked overhead. Rain pounded down in sheets. Leo dropped to his knees in a puddle. He was trapped between the biological mother who hated him and the adoptive mother who was about to die because of him. The rain soaked through his clothes and plastered his hair to his forehead. He knelt there, weeping, and the world offered no answers. Leo sat in the passenger seat of the SUV. soaked and silent. The wipers rhythmically cleared the rain from the windshield. He glanced at the center console and saw his father's silver Rolex and a bottle of heart medication. Yellow pills in a plastic bottle. His father had a bad valve. Leo remembered from a hospital visit when he was younger, remembered his mother worrying about the medications. Leo reached for the tablet on the dashboard. David swatted his hand away. "Don't touch it." Leo noticed his father clutching his own chest, breathing shallowly. The stress was beginning to take its toll. Leo grabbed the pill bottle and threw it out the cracked window into the night. "Oops," he whispered. The bottle tumbled through the rain and disappeared. David gasped, his face turning a purple hue. He lunged for Leo's throat with one hand while trying to steer with the other. The SUV swerved, tires screeching against the wet pavement. Leo grabbed the steering wheel and yanked it hard to the right. The SUV plunged off the side of the road into a soft embankment. "She is my mother." He pointed at Sarah. He grabbed scissors from the workbench and cut her bonds. The ropes fell away. Sarah fell into Leo's arms, sobbing. Leo stood tall, shielding her from Elena, and heard the sound of sirens approaching outside. He had called 911 from David's phone before the crash. The ambulances arrived as the sun began to break. Leo and Sarah sat on the back of an ambulance, while a paramedic wrapped a silver shock blanket around them. David was being loaded into a separate ambulance in handcuffs, an oxygen mask over his face. His chest rose and fell in controlled breaths. Elena was being led away by officers. She stopped and looked at Leo one last time. She pulled a small silver locket from her pocket, the same style as the one Sarah wore, and dropped it on the grass. It glinted in the dew. Leo walked over and picked it up. He opened it. Inside was a photograph of a baby boy with handwriting beneath it. "Leo, our secret joy." The ink was slightly faded. He looked at Sarah, who was watching him with a mixture of love and fear. Leo walked to a storm drain at the edge of the yard. He pulled out the birth certificate from his pocket and the Obsidian Palms key card. He dropped all three items, the locket, the certificate, the card, into the sewer. He watched them disappear into the black water, swallowed by darkness. He returned to Sarah and took her hand. "Let's go inside, Mom," he said. They turned their backs on the sirens and the secrets, walking into the house as the sun finally broke the horizon in shades of gold and orange. The front door closed behind them with a firm thump.